That's just a little of the sounds that you heard over this last weekend at the Budweiser Shootout. And I mean, wild thing.
It's funny how
again.
I have a feeling people like Kyle a little bit more than they did at the end of last season.
You know what? You think?
You think?
Maybe one or two. I mean, you can knock him all you want. I don't care. You have a right to an opinion just as much as anybody else.
He can drive a race car.
Everybody has to tip their hat to this guy for the amount of saves that he did and just the pure driving talent that this guy had over the last weekend.
Yeah.
You got to tip your hat to him because that was too damn cool. I don't care who you are. That was amazing. And the thing that got me was how he spun once, got it, spun once, got it, and then Jeff Gordon got into the back of him, spun it again, oh, I got it. And then the other cars went in front of him and started wrecking again, so he dodged another wreck.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think
jeez.
I think sometimes, like any sport, any athlete has got to be in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many distractions, and I think Kyle was really just in his own world there. I mean, everything he seemed to do, he did well. I mean, he was really into it. His perception was right where it needed to be, and he won the race.
I think it was kind of reminiscent of 2009 at the Coke Zero 400, the July race, when Kyle was getting pushed by Tony Stewart. Tony kind of got into the back of him, hooked him, sent him into the wall, and went on to win the race. Kind of payback. And you looked at Kyle coming off of turn number 4. He pushed Tony out there, so you got that 2-car draft. You had Ambrose way back there, about 5 car lengths back. Now, pit entrance, he dives out, side drafts him, and with less than 100 feet to go, passes him and gets about, an inch or two in front of him and takes the win.
It's really funny you brought up the guy who came in third. I think he's kind of a sleeper this year, Marcos Ambrose, the man from Tasmania. He seems to know the track. This is his second time around. He's with a brand new team.
Mm-hmm. Well, that team he's been with for this is his second season with the team. So it's not a new team. Just, they've made some true changes, so it has that new feel to it. Mm-hmm. But it's still the same team, the same core guys that they've been with for the last 2 seasons or whatever it's been now. And I don't know. I think that you hit on something there. I think he's going to light a fire under himself this year because last year, you look at his record, he's in the top 5. He was in the top 10, just never knocked on the door.
And he was really down on himself. I mean, he was really, really taking it personally, and he was debating in his head, do I stay here and do this? I mean, can I do it, or do I go home?
Well, that was the thing, is he was driving for, at the time, it was the 47, JT Daugherty Racing, and that was the kind of a controversy in his own mind because in his mind he's thinking, do I stay, do I go, and really he had a whole lot of options. He could go back to, he could do some drifting. He had an offer to go drift. He had an offer to go back to World Rally. He had an offer in F1 that he was considering, and he had NASCAR. Mm-hmm. But he knew, hey, I want to stay in NASCAR. He's here. He's got a Cup win under his belt. He already had a Nationwide under his belt and almost came close to a truck win. I think all he needs is a little more time to really gel with his crew. Not to learn the car, not to learn the track. He knows tracks, he knows the cars. He's just got to gel. That chemistry has to gel, and they need to get they need to get the cars a little better. I think he's going to do something this year, though.
Looking forward to it. He just seems like it's always really good. I mean, he was in a big accident. Hey, how's everybody doing? Life is great. I'm racing, and I'm going to be here next week.
Yeah. That's the thing with him, is he's got this great attitude. It could be raining. It could be, all heck's breaking loose on that track. But you know what? Here comes Marcos Ambrose right down the racetrack. He's a good bloke. That's Marcos. He'll find the ray of sunshine in anything and everything that he does, which is what's so cool about him. But we did have 2 practice sessions that happened on the Daytona International Speedway for the 500 and for the Gatorade Duels. Now, this is the first practice today, which is the 3rd overall practice for the 500, saw Matt Kenseth turn a lap of 44.80 and a speed of over 200 miles an hour on that racetrack. Yeah, he was the fastest. Now, he ran 29 laps, and it was lap number 23 that he was the fastest on. So, you're seeing these guys racing, and don't pay a whole lot of attention to when the fast lap was, because you can go out there, and as long as you have a good draft, you can run the fastest lap right out of the gate, or on your very last lap. It's hard to. It all depends on your drafting partner. But looking through the top 10 of the fastest guys during the first practice of today, you had Matt Kenseth, Trevor Bayne in the Motorcraft Ford, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. third, Marcus Ambrose fourth, Mark Martin in the number 55 Aaron's Toyota fifth, Clint Bowyer, his teammate, sixth, Michael McDowell seventh, Kevin Harvick eighth, Paul Menard ninth, and Casey Kane 10th.
Now, who's Michael McDowell racing for this week?
He's racing for the number 9. He's racing the number 98 Curb Records Ford.
Okay, that's okay.
It's a one-race deal. We'll see what they do. They're still trying to make it in. They still have to make it in. So we'll see what happens when it all comes down. Now, in the third practice, Clint Bowyer got into the back of Brad Keselowski when the number 2 car slowed to avoid Ryan Newman, who was coming into pit road, and basically Keselowski slid through the backstretch grass. There was a little damage to the car, but Keselowski, he didn't plan to run the second practice today anyway, so they spent the time repairing the car. Will not go to a backup car on that one. Now, a couple more notables. You look down the field, you had Tony Stewart, who was 12th in that practice. You had Michael Waltrip, 15th, who is a go-or-go-homer. Danica Patrick, 16th in that running order. Terry Labonte, 22nd in the J&C Energy Ford. That is a go-or-go-home car as well. Jeff Gordon, who was 25th. You had Front Row Joe, who's 27th in that first practice today, with a bunch of more of the go-or-go-homers just outside the top 30 in this practice session. You had Dave Blaney, J.J. Yaley, Bill Elliott, Robert Richardson Jr., and Robbie Gordon, all 34th through 38th on the practice sheet. And Kenny Wallace, who's struggling to find some speed, apparently 40th on this practice session. Now, you brought up an interesting point, the 10-lap averages, which I think we should use the 10-lap averages as a more accurate statement as to who's fast and who's not, based off of who's the better drafter, the better pusher, etc. Now, at a 10-lap average, Greg Biffle had the best 10-lap average and 10 consecutive laps on the racetrack. Trevor Bayne was second on that list, very close in speed, so these drivers undoubtedly were drafting against one another.
And you know what? It kills me. This is Trevor Bayne's second time in the Daytona 500. There's no fear in this guy.
No.
He sees it and he tackles it. And look at now. He's at 196.25. I mean, he's packing the mail.
And here's what we all have to keep in mind. You go back a year ago. Trevor Bayne had one Sprint Cup Series race under his belt and a handful of nationwide. Yeah. He came into the Daytona 500 thinking, I just want to make the race and finish it. That's all I want. He did that and more, obviously.
Obviously more.
Now, you look at what he did all through Speed Weeks. He was learning. He spent all Speed Weeks learning. He was following Jeff Gordon, who's his idol, and more or less a mentor for him, was following him around the racetrack, learning things from him, also leaning on those Roush Fenway drivers. Really, he was a sponge.
Sure.
If I've ever seen a sponge in the Sprint Cup Series, he was a super sponge throughout all of Speed Weeks. You look at the Gatorade duels. He spun in the Gatorade duels. A lot of damage to that car. The Wood brothers rebuilt it. They didn't go to the backup. They rebuilt that car. He went out and won the Daytona 500.
Now, is that also... let's look at it. I mean, we've seen the other guys that are going to backup cars. The Wood brothers, they only bring one car. They're great at what they do. Do you think if they own 3 or 4 or 5 cars, they wouldn't just go back into the trailer and pull out number 2?
They do have a handful of cars. They have a relationship with Roush Fenway. They get cars and technical support. They had backup cars, but that was the car Trevor Bayne had practiced in. That was the car he was used to. That was the car that had good numbers. That was the car that he liked. That was the car he was used to. I would have rebuilt that thing too. That was a damn good car. It won on the 500. So I'm a huge fan of rebuilding cars, because if you spend that much time and energy going into one vehicle, one car, go out and race and win with that sucker.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. Looking at the 10-lap averages, you had
Danica's right there.
Danica, exactly, third on the 10-lap average. Even though she's a rookie, I think she's going to surprise some people. I really do.
Well, she's used to driving on, when she was an IndyCar driver, she is used to driving on those big ovals. I mean, the big races there are all 500 miles on those 2-mile tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, so now all it is a quarter mile on each side, and she's there.
And that's exactly it. And I think when she first got into NASCAR, she spent so much time on restrictor plates and still does. I think she knows this racing better than any other racing in NASCAR. So I think she's going to be a contender for the 500. I really do. And I'll go on record right now saying that she's just got to survive the thing as well as anybody else who hopes to finish in the top 15 in that race. They have to survive the 500 and survive the Gatorade Duels. Then you can think about winning the big race. But looking through the top 10 of the best 10-lap averages for that first practice, Greg Biffle, Trevor Bayne, Danica Patrick third, David Gilliland, Tony Stewart fifth on that list with Terry Labonte, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Juan Pablo Montoya, all best top 10 averages for racing during that first practice. Now, during the second practice, not as eventful, simply because you only had a handful of drivers who were actually on track. You had 25 cars actually on track for this one. A lot of people just simply looking to hey, the car's good, let's just finish this up. This concluded about 4 p.m. Eastern time earlier today. Eric Almirola the fastest in that one. Now, the best 10-lap averages, Joe Nemechek, Danica Patrick again. You had Jamie McMurray, Juan Pablo Montoya, and Casey Kane in the top 5 of the best 10-lap averages during the second practice. Now, this is a crucial note. During the second practice today, you had the number 5 car of Casey Kane, who was bump drafting with the number 42 of Juan Pablo Montoya, who got into Casey Kane, spun coming off of turn number 4, and actually, we have the footage queued up, slid through the grass, tore up that nose. Just catching that nose into the grass, tore that nose to shreds and affected the radiator and underneath the car as well. Casey will go to a backup car for the Gatorade Duels and will have to go to the rear of the Duels, but where he finishes is where he will qualify for the Daytona 500. So when he starts the Daytona 500, he doesn't have to go to the back. Take the engine out of that 5 car, put it in the backup car. In the Duels, he's going to the back, but not for the 500. So we're going to see what Casey Kane does in that Gatorade Duels race. Just a simple case of got loose. Juan Pablo Montoya got into the back of him a little bit. He went jumping through the grass a little bit and took that nose, shredded it to pieces. So we'll see what happens. Casey Kane, not too happy about that, obviously, but we'll see what happens.
He will persevere.
I think he will, too. Now, that's the show for today. Check us out tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern. We're recapping the Gatorade Duels and talking about what's coming up in the 500. And an exciting announcement, starting next week, Monday. We're Monday through Thursday. 4 days a week, every day at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern, right here on the world-famous audio8ball.com.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend.
Tell them. Now, we got to get out of here. We got the Gatorade Duels tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you know who's...
I'm going to bed early.
You know who's not going to get a whole lot of sleep tonight? Any of those drivers who are trying to make the 500.
Oh, yeah.
Any of them. None of them are sleeping tonight. It's torture week for these guys. It's the ultimate go or go home race. I can guarantee you some guys are sweating bullets tonight. I can guarantee that. As I look for our music, where is it? Can you tell I'm searching for some music here? There it is. Now, we'll catch you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, right here on the world-famous audio8ball.com. I'm Alan Bailey.
I'm Brian Matthews.
And we'll see you at the track.